Joe, man, how you doing, man? You're just over there grinning. You gonna be ready to take your segment and roll with it?
I think so. I'm excited, so let's see what happens.
Good, 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 good. My daughter, I want to give her a shout out. She has been good enough to bring me multiple cups of coffee. So if you see my logo and not my face, it's because I'm having an emergency of my own that Mr. Oakes talked about earlier today with bladders and balloons. But Joe, I'm going to turn the spotlight over to you. You're in charge. You do your thing. You knock it out of the park, and I'll be back in just a moment.
Awesome. Let me check before you go empty your bladder that I can share my screen.
Okay.
Yeah, I got access. Perfect. Beautiful. So
Cool.
let me get rolling on that note. Go do your thing. Go empty your balloon.
You're on speaker view and you're in charge. I'll be right back.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. All right, guys. So my panelists, just let me know if you can see my screen. What you're supposed to be seeing right now is the full slide of best follow-up practices for dealerships.
I see a blank screen.
Oh, that's not
Joe,
good.
it says Joe has started sharing his screen, but that's all I see.
Okay, let's try something a little different. Hang on. Let's see. Stop share. Let me do a share again. Desktop 2. How about now?
I see now. Best follow-up practices.
All right. Awesome. You see it in full screen mode?
It is. It's full screen and with my little 4 box of us on top.
Okay,
yeah,
perfect.
I got it.
Nice. That's what we got. Okay, that's what we want to see. All right, cool, guys. So I'm going to try to stay as animated as possible, going through a topic that can be a little daunting, but the purpose of it really is to try to demystify it, okay? Earlier on, if you were here at the beginning of the session, you probably heard me say about what we help dealerships with, which can be broken down into 2 very simple things: lead generation and lead management. You're probably not struggling with lead generation at the moment because there's inventory shortages. And, right now it's just dealers are essentially riding the wave, which is great. But one of the things that have subsequently happened is that they realize, oh crap, I've got a problem responding to leads, not only in time, but handling the amount of leads. And so what I'm going to talk about today is a process that in reality shouldn't just be implemented because of the fact of what's going on right now in the market, but in general, because it's going to help the overall user experience for your leads, and it's going to optimize the amount of money, the return on investment that you get from your ad dollars. So what you're going to learn about the presentation that I'm bringing to you today is how to quickly and effortlessly follow up with the qualified leads, maximizing your return on investment. You're going to optimize that follow-up process so that you can make the most out of your marketing efforts and sync the sales process with your marketing so that you can boost your dealership's revenue, and how to use follow-up and automation technology so that your team can focus on what, in my opinion, matters most, which is really that true human interaction. And I think a lot of this, I can tie in so much to, your presentation, Andrew, earlier on with regards to stress, because when a lot of salesmen find themselves having to answer all these calls, answer all these emails, that's one of the biggest complaints. And I'll get into that in a second. That's one of the biggest pain points, and it kind of inflates that balloon furthermore, right? So I won't bore you two guys. I won't bore you guys too much with the details about me, but I think one of the critical components you should probably know about me is I started in digital marketing over 15 years ago, and I started out in the car industry. I have a personal passion for the outdoor industry in general, particularly power sports, boating, and RV. And I worked both in-house for car dealerships and power sports dealerships, some really big ones in South Florida. And I saw the disparity between the two. And I brought my passion to say, oh man, I really want to bring dealerships the resources that they deserve. because unfortunately, by a lot of software companies and just a lot of companies in general that provide services, they're kind of seen like the redheaded stepchild because they're like, oh man, automotive's where the money at. So we did it the other way around. We started from Powersports as opposed to how other companies do it. They start at the automotive and then they're like, oh, second thought, there's more money over there in Powersports. And then they head that way. So I've, done columns in big publications such as Powersports Business, boating industry magazines, and have gotten to do really cool collaborations with industry leaders such as Dealer News, Mark Sheffield from Spader, and Lot Vantage, to name a few. And, we've been really lucky to work with awesome dealers. And they're all unique and different in their own way, but they have some sort of commonality that we have been able to come across, right? So they talk about pain points with regards to the lead generation and the lead management aspect. And they talk about BDC companies being too expensive, having a hard time hiring somebody who would be the right person to handle the leads in-house, or that when they look for BDC companies, if they decide to outsource, that they're not Powersports focused, that their internal team does not follow up enough or doesn't have the time because they're too busy, or that they just get too many leads and they can't handle them internally. And those are really more like symptoms, not really the root of the problem, right? The root of the problem boils down to leads not having a good user experience from the time that they start becoming a lead, that they kind of fall under your radar, so to speak. And that most dealers are not going to reach out enough times, okay? And they're going to start losing customers anywhere between 60 to 180 seconds of not responding to them. Now, this may freak you out because you may be thinking, holy crap, how do I respond that fast? And I'm going to show you some of the secrets that we use to do that. Now, all of this essentially boils down to all missed revenue, right? And frustration and difficulty and training and culture, all of that gets aggravated when these problems that dealers face are left untouched or unsolved. You guys can still see my screen okay and can hear me okay? Thumbs up? Can see you guys. Just give me a hell yes.
Joe, you are rocking it, man. The volume's awesome. The screen's clear. Everything's good.
Okay, awesome. So this is a little case study. Thank you, Kurt. This is a case study I really like to use where, shoot, almost 35,000 lead calls generated in shy of 2 years. We say, okay, the marketing worked. And then I always like to ask the question right after, but did it matter? And that's a really important question. I see marketing and sales as two main important parts of a ship, right? So think about a ship, you're trying to travel, and then you've got the propeller of the ship. It gives you the thrust, it moves, right? That's sales. I mean, we know sales is the lifeline. It's the heart pump, it's the heart of any business. Marketing is like that rudder, because marketing, you depending on how you want it to go, you want to move a certain type of inventory, you want to focus on a particular market. Marketing is that rudder for sales. They both have to work together. And how many, dealers come and tell me, oh man, I can't get the left arm to talk to the right one. My marketing and sales department just have that issue, So there's a twilight zone there, not only in the communication of the two, but also in the communication when the lead comes in, being able to nurture that lead so that it materializes into an actual sale. And that's why I ask, did it matter? Now, for whatever reason, that screen is blank, but we'll skip over it. So the number one biggest factor between top dealerships and the rest. This may not come as a shock to you, but drum roll, please. It boils down to lead handling. Lead handling is everything when it comes to digital marketing. When it comes to getting that lead to materialize, a lot of sales guys are like, wait, why am I going to worry about some guy that hasn't come into the dealer when I've got, 1, 2, or 3 in front of me? Because because they don't see it. It's intangible to them. But the truth of the matter is, we know statistics tell us that the vast majority of the sales buying cycle happens online. It's like damn near 80% of it, right? So it's there, it's happening. They're vetting you. And then when they become a lead by actually hitting a submission on your web form or on Cycle Trader or whatever else lead, generation source you've got, there's that twilight zone that needs to be bridged, needs to be gapped. And I'm going to talk about that. So those dealers that have the lead management, the lead handling properly covered, they follow that Italian economist formula of the 80-20 rule, right? It's about 20% of the dealers that are taking 80% of the revenue. The rest are kind of squandering off, and see what they can get for this graphs for the people that weren't contacted by the big guys, or for whatever reason, they just got lucky. So let's talk about what's the cost of bad or poor or a missing lead management strategy. There's going to be a loss of web form submissions because they're not going to convert, meaning converting into actual sales. Sales will start dropping after just 60 seconds. And I'm going to show you a stat, which is crazy. The actual metric is 180 seconds. It's when you start going lower than 100% as far as you being able to convert. A slow response time equals poor customer experience. I've had dealers that we kind of just listen in the background and we just do the lead management, but we don't do the BDC. And then we've got our system and we get notifications and they're like, dude, can somebody from your team contact me? And literally they've asked like 3, 4, 5 times. And it's just like, they're begging to be sold. And by this point, they're frustrated. So, what do you think they're going to be like when they come into the showroom? They're going to be so predisposed to be upset at your sales guys. They're not going to be predisposed to being sold, There's an insufficient number of touch points that leaves money on the table, unconverted leads. There's a poor connect rate with leads and crappy appointment ratios and tons of missed appointments, people that just don't show up. So it all equals just money left on the table. Now here's where the problem starts, right? 78% of dealerships are going to start losing customers when they take longer than 3 minutes to get back to them. Now it shows like my next slide is missing a graphic, unfortunately, which really, really, really stinks. But essentially the way it works is, let me see if I can make some improvise here and make a little last minute annotation. The percentage that, hold on, let's see, not mouse, that's not what I want. I want to draw. The percentage that we get if somebody answers within, not 39, 391%. That's your conversion rate if you answer within, oops, ignore that, 60 seconds. I'm having to improvise here because the graphic, for whatever reason, didn't embed. Now, if you go to about 180 seconds, which is 3 minutes, sorry for my chicken scratch, that's going to bring you to about 98% conversion rate. Figure that. Isn't that crazy? Now, most dealers are like, yo, that's crazy. How do I get my people to really, answer that quickly? And I'm going to give you some of that. I'm going to give you the answer to those things in a second. So here's where the problem continues. Reps make 75.2% fewer contact attempts that they think they do. Now, I'm going to warn you in advance. I see that the next graphic is also missing, which really sucks. But again, we're going to improvise. So the graph here goes like this. All right. You've got contact attempts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and only up until the 6 is that your conversion rate after 6 contact attempts starts going up to 90%. Meaning you have to start contacting, you have to contact these people at least 6, 7, 8 times before your chances start getting up to where they should be. Now, if you guys had to guess what the average sales rep does as far as the number of contact attempts, you'll laugh in comparison to what I just showed you. A whopping 1.3 contact attempts. That's right. The average sales rep is going to give up after just 1.3 contact attempts And as you just saw on my chicken scratch graphic, it's going to take at least 6, 7, or 8 times. So this is likely how you're feeling with regards to everything I'm throwing your way right now. But we're going to get into the solution part, I promise. Let's talk a little bit more about the common symptoms, what you see, what you experience in your dealership with a poor, missing, or overall bad lead management strategy. Overly complicated and needlessly expensive software technologies. You're sold on the next new, oh wow, shiny object. Dealer owners are so exhausted with being sold with the next big thing and being promised so many things, and then they just kind of get sold this thing and they don't even get any kind of guidance on like how to use it, right? So what you see on the screen right now is what you don't want. It's just 100 dashboards to have to log into, and you pay for the monthly subscription and you never end up using it. Seemingly low quality leads. Now I say seemingly because depending on where the lead came from determines their intent. So hear me out here. A Google lead, a lead that was generated on Google, is going to be much higher intent than a lead generated on Facebook. Why? Because Google is search-based, meaning if I am looking for a dealership near me because I'm ready to buy, I'm going to say Harley dealer near me. On Facebook, and I won't go into detail with all the targeting capacities that we have on Facebook. We've got an ongoing joke that we say on Facebook, you either are the product or you use the product. But they've got scary amount of data of the interest, of your interest, my interest. They say, I mean, I forget, I think it was Forbes magazine says that Facebook is likely to be able to predict you better than your parents can. And I believe it. They're tracking us. So as an advertiser, we use that to our advantage and we go very fine-tuned into the people we want to talk to. Now, the big difference is they're just chilling. They're hanging out on Facebook. They're not actively searching. So some dealers will say, oh, those Facebook leads are no good. No, it's not necessarily that they're no good. It's just that they need more nurturing. They're not as far down in the buyers, in the funnel, or in the buy, or further along in the customer's buying journey as they would. So that's why I say seemingly low quality, right? Then another big one is struggling with booked appointment ratios or a ton of no-shows. Another one is ghosting and lack of engagement from the leads. And the sales staff complaining about feeling overwhelmed, and I would probably say rightfully so, right? So let's talk about 3 main follow-up strategies that are really successful for dealerships. And this is where we get into the really fun part. You get the meat and the potatoes of it. I'm trying to be very cognizant of my time. So if I'm breezing through this, don't worry. I will be more than excited to give you these, not only this slide deck presentation, but many other resources for free. And you can jump on a call with me, pick my brain and all of that, whether we work together or not. I'm here to help out the industry in general. So let's talk about the 3 main follow-up success strategies that we implement, but we've seen really, really work for dealerships. The first one that we're going to look at is your outreach cadence and pace structure. Okay. So here's a simple, quick to implement tactical element for proper follow-up. What we do, I'm going to divulge my secret weapon, okay, is Dealer Lead Pro. Now, what Dealer Lead Pro does is that it will, and I'll talk about this in a second, centralize all of my communication in one place. But additionally, it will help me put in place lead call notifications, ringless voicemails, text messages, and emails with carefully crafted messaging according to the dealership and the source, right? That is going to nurture that relationship. Now, since I can see that I'm already missing a graphic on my next slide, let me go and give you like a real live example. Let me clear this. Can you guys still see my screen okay? Just give me a hell yes, because I can barely hear you, or I can't hear you or I can't see you, sorry.
Hell yes.
All right, that's what I'm talking about. So let's go into, all right, let's go here into a sequence. and I'll show you guys what a sequence looks like a little bit more real time, because I can already tell that my next graphic is missing. So screw that. Okay, so Harley dealer, check it out. These guys are going to come in through Harley, Harley Digital Financial Services. Now, let's click into that sequence and I'll show you what that looks like. Well, when somebody comes in, we have now, we know they're coming in because they put in an application on Harley Digital, on Harley Digital's program, particularly on Harley's website. So we structure emails. And a lot of dealers will say, because I found a lot of dealers that they try to fit 50 pounds of crap in a 5-pound bucket. As far as it's concerned with like the first communication. I'm not of that methodology, because we've seen psychologically, they just kind of breeze over that. They don't even read it. The idea with these things are to get engagement. So very simple, but customized. Hi, Joe. This is Casey from Caliente Harley. Thanks for applying for financing on a Harley Davidson. Which bike do you have in mind? Heck, we know what bike they have in mind. That's already been parsed into the CRM. Can you come in today to check out the bike you want? Or does tomorrow at 3 p.m. work better? Those are questions designed to spark conversation. You'll see here, these codes essentially mean that the user's signature gets injected. This means that the user's name will get injected. This will be the user's name that will be injected. Now, the user is the person, like if we have a round robin, the user would be a salesperson. So that's the cool thing. It'll actually, without notice that customization, it's personalizing the message to, let's say, Kurt. Kurt was interested in a Harley. Hey, Kurt, thanks for applying. This is Joe from Caliente, right? And it's got my email signature. Sales guy didn't have to do anything, or BDC guy didn't have to do anything. But that's not where we stop. We're trying to cast a wide net, which I'll get into in a second with regards to part number 2, which is super important. The next part, what's going to happen, is also a similar email in trying to gain engagement is going to go out. Then, and this is so cool, an automatically generated phone call. And I know it's kind of hard to see when I'm sharing my screen, but an automatically generated phone call will be triggered from Dealer Lead Pro to either the cell phone of the sales, the sales guys, or the BDC manager. And it'll say, don't hang up. You have a lead from, and we can change this verbiage and customize it, right? You have a lead from someone that applied, for credit via Harley Financial. Their name is Joe, and they're interested in a 2021 Road Glide Special. Press 1 to be connected. You press 1, the lead is not really on the line. You press 1 and the system's gonna dial that lead that came in. Now, you talk to them, great. You have a conversation, you can note it, you can choose whether to keep them on the sequence or remove them from the sequence, or add them to a future sequence, because maybe they say, I'm applying now, but I don't really want to buy till a month from now, whatever the case may be. You don't get a hold of them, then there's a voicemail. Now, for whatever reason, just bear with me. My audio gets choppy when I share it. So just keep in mind that the audio isn't actually choppy, it's just my computer. But check out how we customize. Then we do something called the ringless voicemail. So you weren't able to get a hold of them, right? But when the BDC person or the sales rep hangs up, then something called a ringless voicemail will go. So it bypasses the ringing and goes to the lead's voicemail and drops a pre-recorded voicemail, which, although it doesn't include the person's name, it's very customized because it is talking about the lead, the lead source through which this particular lead applied. So check it out. I'm going to just quickly play it.
Hi, this is Casey from Caliente Harley Davidson. I'm just checking in with you about your recent credit application. Please give us a call back. The number is 210-942-1912. Thank you.
So again, the choppiness, that's just my computer. I don't know, gotta replace my soundboard or something. But really cool thing about that is that then that cadence I talked about goes on with, a day later an email, a day later a text, a day later another email, a day later another text, 2 days later another email, 15 minutes after that a text, and then another voicemail drop that was similar, but just saying, hey, just following up with you again. And then we go through, and there's no end. There doesn't have to be an end to this. This is about the average, because this is about close to 20 touch points. But man, we can do so much. Look at this. We can add Facebook Messenger. So if they came in through Facebook Messenger, we can automatically generate messages to them on Facebook. Google My Business is integrated. We can create tasks. We can do manual SMS and manual calls, which essentially means that you can have something pre-set up like this, but it won't actually trigger until somebody manually says, okay, I'm sitting behind it. Go ahead and send it. So that's the big difference with that. And then we could do so many cool things like say, I want to send it at a custom time. I don't want to send it on Mondays or Sundays because we're closed. And I don't want to send it blah, blah, blah. And then you can do if or when, or only if it falls under an exact time. So the sky's the limit with regards to what you can do. And I'm showing you, of course, I've got a bias for Dealer Lead Pro because it's our baby. We built it with dealerships in mind. But honestly, this is not the only tool that's out there. There are a lot of tools to help you, relatively simply implement. And, you'll have to devote some time to putting these things in place. But the point of it is getting this actually, put in place. So let's go to number 2, because I tend to ramble a lot and I don't want to run out of time. Automation and integration. Use technology to do the hard work. You've already seen quite a bit of that. But what I really want to mention now is why automation, technology, and integration is so important. One stat that we know, okay, is that the use of multiple channels of communication is going to increase your success rate by 161%. Now, there's something I tell dealers about a lot, and I tell them, meet the customer where they're at, meet your lead where they're at. I've got a really cool case study about a client of ours, same management, well, I should say same ownership, right? 2 locations, different management styles. North location was smile and dial, pound that phone. And they just wanted to shove phone calls down people's throats. Southern store, much more progressive. I'm not going to say they didn't touch the phone because they did, right? But their mix of what they did was a lot more comprehensive and evened out, meaning it was even across the board between text messages, emails, and phone calls. And then the North store did very poorly on emails and texts and any other kind of communications such as Facebook Messenger, and they just pounded away at the phone. Guess who do you think fared better? The South store. And the reason why is because we have dug our, we tend to want to dig our heels in because we said, this worked before, but it may not necessarily work now. Times are changing, and some people, like I'm the type of person that's a lot more prone that if you're calling me, unless you're my dealer and you're calling me, I'm going to pick up the phone. But even if I did a lead submission online, I'm telling you, even if I submitted my information to your company online and you're calling me, I'm much less likely to answer your phone call than your text. You send me a text, I'll reply. So it's crazy. So the idea of having the multiple channels, particularly at first, generating that phone call, generating that text, and generating that email, is to cast a wide net to see what's going to bite. So here are the biggest ones that you can do. These we actually implement through Dealer Lead Pro, and they're your biggest ones, right? Phone calls, text messages, Facebook Messenger, Google My Business, and web chats. Now I want to make sure that I'm cautious of the time, but I'm going to give you guys an example of one of our dealers that's near and dear to our hearts. And they've got a simple chat widget here that integrates directly to Dealer Lead Pro. Who the heck has time to stay behind the computer to web chat? I love Engage to Sell, don't get me wrong. They got a good service, relatively inexpensive. I think it's $200-300 or whatever. But nobody sits there waiting for a live agent to go back and forth with them. So this widget that we implement, once I put in, let's say I'm going to go and hit my information. I'm interested in financing. Well, once I go into, let's just go to Basecamp and I go to conversations, boom, there it is. Real time, right away. it's not only in conversations and it comes in marked as a web chat, but here's the beauty about it. When I reply, I'm just going to say test, Joe. When I reply, the absolute beauty of this is the following. Watch this. I'm going to change my sharing for a second. Let's see.
Hey,
Hopefully
and
I'm not
Joe,
freezing.
just to take some pressure off, Joe, you got a solid, 15 minutes, man.
Okay, cool. Awesome. So check this out. Once, did I end up hitting reply? Yes, there it is. Okay, I just have it. I have it as the rep's name already on here. But check that out. See, it already came in. Test Joe. So now I'm saying, all right, how much down? I'm texting back, right? Well, look at this. Now it's going to come up. So now we're effectively texting. You saw how I initiated as a web chat, but now we're effectively texting. That lead can walk away from the computer or whatever, and they're effectively texting. This is the beauty of meeting them where they're at. It's a perfect example of what's really important. Same goes for, what is it? Facebook Messenger, Google My Business. You saw text messages, which links directly and very nicely to web chats. And then, of course, phone calls. And I think one that I didn't include in here, but of course it should be included is emails. The problem that we all know, sorry for my chicken scratch, of course, that we all know about emails is open rate, blanket open rate across all industries is like a good, 20%, 12% at best, but it's all good. We still need to cast that wide net, okay? So before I drive you guys crazy, let me jump over to number 3, valuable reporting. This is super critical. Valuable reporting. It's important to have reports on all of your efforts. You want to know, you want to have a complete picture on what we kind of call the secret KPIs, right? Let me see if I can go a little forward. Let's see. Here. No, it's this one. The most important key performance indicators. And there's a sandwich here, really, guys. There's one here, we could call it 0, and that's number of leads, right? But that's an obvious. That's like one that almost every dealer looks at, number of leads. But then there's number 6. What's another one that every dealer looks at? Bikes sold. But almost nobody looks at this. Like I can almost guarantee it. There's very few people. So that's why we call it kind of like the secret OEM KPIs. They're really important. You want to know your lead response time, number of touch points, the connect rate, meaning really the reply rate. How many of them were you able to get on the phone? How many of them replied to a text, replied to an email, replied to whatever? How many of them were you able to book? And how many of them kept or missed their appointments? Super critical. So let me work my way back here a little bit. So then, of course, at a less granular level, you want to have a picture of how many leads you got, the sources of those leads, your total investment, your cost per lead. But then you go a little bit more granular, which is, and I apologize because my slides were a little bit out of order, but you get into the reply rates, into the booking rates. I don't have a screenshot here for booking, but that's okay. You get the point. But you want to see, okay, look at that. From Facebook, man, I'm getting 62% reply rate. So for somebody that says, like, oh man, those leads are crap. I don't know about that. Why is that percentage getting? You know why? Because they're being nurtured. Look at this. Those coming from the OEM, almost 87%. You know, I can tell you that if you're a dealer, you have got to feel animosity toward the manufacturer, because I know for at least the last decade, the manufacturer, I don't care what brand you represent, has been bopping you over the head, telling you that you suck at follow-up. And I don't want to beat a dead horse, but it's likely that they're correct. The problem where the animosity comes in is that they have no clue how to fix it, and they don't give you the tools to fix it. And these are the tools to fix it. So these three key components, you know, that we've gone over are the most critical aspects you need to implement as far as your follow-up to cure that twilight, to get the most return on investment, the most bang on your buck for those leads you get on organic search engine optimization, on paid Google ads, Rollick, Cycle Trader, Facebook ads. That's why typically those leads don't end up converting. Now, there's another aspect, which is that you'd want to calculate, you know, how you want to go about this. You've got multiple choices at your disposal. You can have somebody in-house do this. You can have a consultant implement it, and then you can have somebody in-house be the BDC person that does the follow-up and, you know, make sure that they pilot a system like the one I showed you. Versus you can have an outsized BDC strategy or company like us do it. You want to look at the amount of leads that you generate, because that's going to determine your cost, either for somebody in-house or somebody outsourced. You want to know the cost for your software, how easily you can access and train and configure regarding that software. And, you know, the number of possibly dedicated reps to the number of leads generated. We have found statistically that most representatives will be very successful between 150 to 200 leads, incoming leads. However, that doesn't mean that they cannot handle more calls. Part of what we actually do is that during downtime and between calls, we have, as an example, our reps make outbound, you know, make outreaches to say, hey, so-and-so, you're coming up for your 1K service. Let me schedule you right now. So to bring it to a conclusion, all right, as a dealer, let's just recap real quick. You're going to want a system that's as technically as simple, fast, and budget conscious to implement. You want something that can scale to an unlimited number of potential customers quickly and inexpensively. It's very process driven. Okay. That's really what it boils down to. And you wanted to address the three main elements of profitability, of profitable lead management that I just shared with you. You want to implement, here's how to get that, right? You're going to implement a high quality lead generation system that's going to cherry pick best prospects for you. You probably already have that in place. So right now your lead generation may not be, you know, something that is conking you over the head, because the industry as a whole, and with the exception of the inventory problem, is doing well as far as leads go. Then you're going to implement a follow-up strategy that suits your dealership's optimum selling strategy. So the software you pick, whether you're going to go in-house or you're going to do it, you know, outsourced, those are things that, you know, you have to take into consideration. You have to map it out. You've got, you know, and hit me up. I've got forms and stuff like that I can offer you for free so that you can fill it out. The form will help you understand where you're at, where you stand, and if BDC is something that's right for you. I mean, lead follow-up and lead management is for every dealer. Don't misinterpret what I'm saying. Every dealer needs this. But whether an outsourced solution is for you or somebody sitting there dedicated to answering those calls for you, that is something I can help you determine with, you know, very simple resources that I can hand you. Then number 3, you want to focus on low-hanging fruit by using marketing and automation tactics that are going to give you the highest return on your investment. Because of course, for the interest of time, those sequences that I gave you, that I showed you, are just the tip of the iceberg. Because remember, those people, they may have submitted their lead right now, their information on a whim, but they may not be ready for whatever reason. Maybe something changed. And within 2 weeks, you know, 2 weeks, you could have a life-altering event in 2 weeks. maybe they changed their mind, or maybe, I don't know, they're going through a divorce and maybe they're not ready yet. But what, are you going to squander or waste that lead? No. So this is just the tip of the iceberg. You later on, that's going to be low hanging fruit. They already contacted you. They're already somewhat familiarized with you. So here's what happens when you have the right follow-up strategy when it's implemented. You will dominate your local market without question. I mean, you will be in that 10 to 20% of the dealers reaping 80% of the revenue. Okay, because I guarantee you, vast majority of dealers are not doing this. So you will stand out. You can start reinvesting new dollars to scale what you just implemented, because you could put more money into marketing and more money into advertising. And as you have the system solidified, it's going to go smoothly. And you can start the process of implementing this in-house with the help of someone like me or my team. You can have this either done in-house or you can have it outsourced. It's completely up to you. So once you have this customer lead follow-up and acquisition system in place, there's no limit to how much you can grow. It's really, truly up to you. Now, I don't want to self-promote too much because I get self-conscious and a little bit shy about that. And I'm not trying to sell you guys anything, but if you want to talk to me, whether it is you want to talk shop, ask me questions, pick my brain, I'm going to have an open session right now if I do have time, Kurt, for questions and answers. But with that being said, if you want to set some time where we can more calmly do a cup of coffee through Zoom, then you can grab my calendar. You could see my availability live by visiting gobeyondcreative.com/schedule, or you could just shoot me an email at joe@gobeyondcreative.com. And what I'll do also is I will share any of those resources that I mentioned, or anything else that you might need that may not have resonated right at this moment, but you may say, I have a question about that. I likely have a resource that I can get your way to help you out. So with that, I'm going to wrap it up, and I'm going to see if there are any questions and answers that we can go at.
Yeah. Hey, Joe, do me a favor, close your screen so we can kind of expose the panel. And,
Let me stop.
and, you know, I just want to, you know, sticking with my trend for the rest of the day, I just want to jump in and be like, thank you for presenting today. Like, the value you brought and the fire hose that you just unleashed on people that are watching this, whether you're watching this live or on the replay, you're going to want to watch the replay because there's a ton of stuff in here.
Yeah.
Right.
Sometimes I feel a little bad because I'm like, oh gosh, I hope I'm not having them check out, you know?
No, I put in my comments in the chat thread, I said I could geek out on this for all day. Right. One thing keeps jumping off to me, and I'm thinking about the dealers that I visit. I've been to big stores, little stores, everything else. And a lot of guys, a lot of owners go, you know, I'm not into that automation stuff, man. We're just a mom and pop store. We're just trying to make ends meet. And in my mind, I'm like, you're going to be a mom and pop store until you fall over if you don't embrace some of these tools and welcome growth into your business. And it sounds mean. It sounds horrible when I say it, but I mean, I'm there. I talk to dealers when I consult with them, and I hear this. What's at the risk of making it sound salesy, what's your pitch to people that are like, we're just small mom and pop. We're not into automation, because you got into the 60 seconds, 180 seconds, right?
Yeah. So that's a really good question. And there's a couple things I could go about it. Just a quick anecdote about, I don't, you know, I'm gonna be right, you know, really upfront. I'm a people pleaser. I don't necessarily like to ruffle feathers, but I do ruffle feathers when I run into blatant things where I'm like, oh my gosh, listen to this call. I'm talking to an owner. I'm like, listen to this call. And then, you know, I'm saying, like, you cannot ignore this. You've got a systemic call problem in your dealership, you know? So and sometimes I'll be honest with you guys, I'll get nervous to have that conversation. But it needs to be had, because otherwise, what good are you doing them? You know what I'm saying? So the reason why I preface it with that is because there was this post online, you know, that somebody made, and it was like this thing that was like, you know, those billboards that you kind of put where you put the letters and it's lit up, it's backlit, you know, and it was like the side of a shop, and then the letter said, if you keep buying from online, pretty soon there will be no shop that's going to install your parts for you. And then everybody, like every dealership owner was going, yeah, man. Yeah, that's right. And like, they're digging their heels in. And then I came in going like, sorry guys, I really don't mean to like ruffle your feathers here, but
have you ever bought a TV from Amazon and it says, hey, by the way, would you like us to send an installer out there for just like a mere $100 to professionally install this for you? What do you think is going to happen? So the reason why I bring that story is because to the mom and pop, the first thing I would say is we got to get with the times. I love the fact that you're a mom and pop. You know, my business was a complete startup of being a one-man show to now having a complete team. There is nothing the matter with that care and that personal love that goes into it, but you still got to roll with the times. You cannot dig your heels in and say, that's it. So on the second part of that, what I would tell them is there are ways that, and I'm not trying to sound salesy here. This is what we do. We actually offer Dealerly Pro, okay, as a standalone, so they can get it as a software as a service. But I would caution them and say, like almost every other software on the market, you don't want it to just turn into this bill you're getting charged for that you're not utilizing it. The vast majority of people will get a software and they'll use it to like 20%, if that, of its capacity. So what I would say to them is, if you don't have yet the finances to hire that BDC person or hire that outsourced agency, get you the software and get you a consultant that will agree to charge you a one-time setup to set everything up for you and teach you how to use it. And then it's kind of like similar to building a website. Now, of course, with our industry is different because I call them rent-a-sites. And I have that bone to pick.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, but traditionally a website is, you pay a one-time fee and then you own the website. And then when you need to build a new one, 2, 3, 4 years down the line, then you do it again. But you had the platform built and you had the system already built for you, right? And so similarly, that would be my response to them is, hey guys, budget a little bit for what you're going to spend on a monthly basis. There are a lot of different softwares. To give you an idea, ours is extremely inexpensive, considering that some dealerships I know pay upwards of $400 or $500 just for MailChimp, and Dealerly Pro replaces MailChimp. Then it also replaces text blasting. It also replaces web chat as an example. That in and of itself is over $1,500 of value. And we charge for unlimited usage per dealer location, $497 a month. That's it. And you can unify your Google My Business, your Facebook. But in all honesty, we're not the only ones. There are a lot of other ones. That's why I say it needs to be something that fits them. But what they do need, whether it's a small or a big guy, right? They do need to spend the time planning it out to really think, okay, what level am I going to be on? So am I the mom and pop that needs to, just have the software structured like for me by a consultant and then we can kind of run it in-house? Or am I going to go all out with this? Am I going to outsource it? Or am I going to have my whole sales team on it? Whatever the case may be. And they need to do the research on like finding the right software for them that fits, their needs. I don't know if that makes sense. I kind of went on a off on the weeds there on your question, but.
No, it does. It's one of those things where, I mean, you hit on it. So I think about my own personal example. I have my own training company, Powersports Academy. I want to sell that to every dealer that wants it, right? I mean, the average mid-sized dealer is going to spend $10,000 a year with me on training. So of course I want as many dealers, right? But I realized in order for me as a business person, as an entrepreneur to make those sales, it's not sending an email message or a social post and thinking someone's going to swipe a credit card for 10 grand.
Yeah.
I mean, I got to make phone calls. I got to do emails. I might have to drive out there and shake a hand. And with the thousands of dealers that are out there might be dealers watching this replay, right? And going, well, Kurt's never called me. Maybe he thinks I suck. No, I can't possibly be that person. I can't, so I'm trying to hire folks and pay them a crazy commission to do it. But it's because I realize you have to have all those touches, and the multiple channels and all those things that you talked about, dude. I'm blown away when I see you showed me this months and months and months ago. You gave me a walkthrough, and I was like, that's awesome. That's awesome. That's awesome. And just think about those posts that we shared on LinkedIn together, you and I, right? All my leadership training boils down to a lot of it with that Pareto principle. 20% of the people do 80% of the work. And the problem is a lot of these dealerships are small and they might have a high concentration of 80%ers in their building.
Yeah.
So that's why they might return that email because they have to, or they might leave that voicemail because they have to. And they're going to do the lazy thing and wait for the customer to come to the dealership unannounced and be like, hey, I closed a bike on a Saturday, as if that's something that they worked hard for when it was a gimme, right?
Oh, yeah.
But they're not the 20% doing the follow-up and the hard work. And that's why I think dealers in general, this is a very general statement, not meant to pick on anybody, but I think that's why dealers need to, look at Go Beyond Creative or other consultants that are in that 20% group that are going to be like, I'm going to push every button until I get that customer in your store. And then you know what? If you've got a building full of 80%ers, they can do the close on the warm-up, right? Because it's already been warmed up. It's ready for the close. But a lot of folks don't have that skill set.
Yeah, yeah. And that's where, because I know a lot of people say, well, like, oh, the automation, this and that. Automation can be done. It's never, ever set it and forget it, ever. There's no such thing. And as much as I'm a huge proponent for it, I always say, don't expect that, because there's never a silver bullet. So don't expect that you're going to turn this on all of a sudden, oh, it's magically good. It needs to be piloted, right?
Yeah,
but
yeah,
it needs to be piloted and monitored and all of that. But still, though, the advantages of it, as far as like the reach of how much more reach, once you pass the learning curve of learning how to pilot it and how to manage it properly, oh my gosh, the fruit that comes out of it is enormous, And another thing I would add to that is to people that are very, because I hear that every now and then. It's kind of become a lot less, commonplace, but I do hear people are like, oh, automation, and they kind of, well, here's the thing, because they probably had personal experiences in the past with automation that was done wrong, that wasn't customized, that seemed disingenuous. And that's the problem. And so that's where, working with a consultant or somebody who knows their stuff with regards to the software and how to set it up, like data is everything. Like as a perfect example, if you, Kurt, for instance, submitted a form on our website and you put your names in all caps, and then I'm going to market to you, I'll be damned if that name is in all caps. The system, our system, and it has been set up so that it properly capitalizes your name, because you don't need to be that savvy to realize that, wait a minute, why is this person writing everything else in proper sentence case, but all of a sudden my name is in all caps? Because I came in through the automation, you know what I mean? So those are the details that we're very huge sticklers about, that make it where it's, thank you. Those are the small details. And that's where you realize oh, wait a minute, this is not a human behind it, So yeah.
Andrew's making that confused German Shepherd look now. He's like, hey, I need some tools like this. And by the way, I forgot, everybody, clap and air hands and all that stuff. I mean, Joe, you bring the heat every time, man. This is your second run through the Roundtable, and man, your input and your outreach. I mean, you share with your network that we're doing this thing, and whether people see it live or on the replay, it's like you're bringing people in. It's awesome.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. I'm really excited to be here. I totally subscribe to the doctrine that you've got of, helping our industry. I mean, that's really, truly a passion for me, so anything I can do to help.
The more economically sustainable we can help the dealers become, as people in the field, the more they can edify the brands they represent, right? And so, too many times when I worked at the OEM, I would hear well, if we train them in this, it might help this other brand, or it might help that other brand, or it might help. And if you hear that, pardon me, that's the trash truck picking up our trash out front. But, we don't have time in this industry, especially with this opportunity COVID's afforded our industry, to sit back and worry about who we're giving pieces of the pie to. We just need to bake more pie. Yeah. We just need to get together, man, put some energy in and make something happen. And everyone that's joined this roundtable has brought something like that.
I totally agree with you, man. Totally agree with you.
I have one more question, unless Jason's got something. You're good? I'm jealous. I want to know what Jason's eating because I skipped lunch and I'm kind of
But you
hungry.
got the popcorn. This is quite a show. I mean, mine's not really a question. It's maybe as much as gushing, but that was awesome, Joe. That was something. I mean, obviously,
Thank you, Jason.
I'm really pro small dealer. You know, big dealers are cool, but I still got my start in the industry working for small dealers. And I won't try to take up too much time here on this, but when I worked at Fox Racing, you know, we were blowing up at the time. It was the early 2000s, and small dealers would call me and say stuff like, "Yeah, well, we're just a small dealer," and I'm like, "No, there is no small dealer to me. If you have customers walking through your door, you have somebody riding motorcycles, you're important to me because it goes back to, I mean, I think that's where I started my whole, that's if it's two people who didn't go to the track that weekend, that's two less people like on there." And so the kind of like all of that circle back into what you do and what Kurt was saying with, you know, mom and pop dealership. I'm like, dude, everybody needs that help. And the thing that makes yours so rad is that tailoring the message, like maybe like the little bit more, I don't know, stoic approach like works like someplace, but if you're a small mom and pop shop in Wichita, Kansas, maybe that message gets tailored to a little bit more redneckish, and you know, and then that people relate, and I think that's awesome, dude. So
Thanks,
I'll
man.
be
Yeah.
I'm a proponent, and I'll be lobbying for you as well, man. If I can help it with any dealers, yeah, I will most happy to be able to try to push some product for you.
That's awesome, man. Thank you. I greatly appreciate that. And to your point, just to add to that, because I, you know, like one of the things, so we start out with kind of like a basic, you know, idea of like the total number of touch points, and then the timing between each touch point, right? Like that cadence that I talked about. But I always say to the dealer, and I usually go visit this, by the way, I don't think anybody with an agency does this because I know Dealer Spike won't do this. But I try to go and visit my dealers at least once a year, and usually within 3 to 4 months of starting to work together, like actually be there at least a couple of days, because I want to absorb their culture. Every single dealer is different. Every single dealership is different. Doesn't matter if they carry the same exact thing as the guy next door. They are different in their own way. Every company in general is an organism in and of its own. So that in and of itself, that's why in the presentation I put carefully crafted messaging. In reality, I should update that to carefully crafted messaging to you, to your dealer. But you hit on a very important very important point about the area you're in, because as an example, we've got some dealerships that are like just about 15 miles from New York. They're a lot more hustle and bustle. So the space in between each touch point is way quicker. Now, if you're a little bit more toward the deep south, then, you know, that starts getting stretched out a little bit. And, you know, instead of it being that you're following up over a span of a week and a half, it's going to be, you know, 2.5 weeks. So those are all things that are really important, you know, to keep in mind, which I guess people, you know, to their defense, a lot of people just don't know about automation, and they just think that automation just means that it's just all the same. It's just a chat bot, or it's just, you know, this and that. And it's not. That's why I think the term artificial intelligence comes in, you know, because it needs to be, and that's where the human input is so critical, because it needs to be customized, it needs to be tailored, it needs to be set up, it needs to be done right. And then somebody needs to pilot it, you know, but then you can remove like a shit ton of the workload, you know, 80%, 90% of like the really heavy lifting of the mundane, having to type out that email over and over again, you know, so.
I'm lazy, so, you know, and I get sideways with things and not very detail oriented. If I was in a dealership, yeah, that would be huge. Is that applicable to anything outside of dealers? Have you found?
Yes.
Like MIJ, like I wonder if is it applicable there?
Yeah, that actually is a really good question. And we could probably follow up with like, you know, kind of getting together so that I would understand a little bit more about the process on, like, let's say, for instance, when somebody posts a job, if there are any other things that like need to happen thereafter, like, hey, check on this, check on that. Hey, you've got an applicant, and then like you see that they haven't opened it up or something, then
I got one.
Okay, yeah.
Well, I was gonna say like we hear so often, and this it maybe isn't as dealer centric, but although it could be, but people mainly because I hear it from the OEMs and the bigger companies like that. It's like, yeah, I applied and I've not heard anything back. That is a very common, story. So it might be nice if there was that, just letting people know that we're working like on your thing and making people feel like they were.
Oh yeah. I think there's room for that. That'd be actually really interesting, because I always love a new challenge, and I think it
Mhm.
because the application of it is, I mean, the sky's the limit, truly.
Well, I think it's awesome, brother. Good job.
Thank you, man.
Hope we can get more dealers like taking advantage of it and getting more people like on motor scooters and UTVs and stuff like that because of it.
Heck yeah, it's all a big circle, right? Because it's not just the sustainability for like our companies, it's the sustainability for every single person that works inside of a dealership. And as I tell our BDC reps, I said, well, not only do you have the coolest job in the world, because you just get to talk, you get to talk shit all day about like really cool stuff, but on top of that, you are literally influencing somebody like that's possibly a life-altering decision. They're going to get on the bike of their dreams, or a wave runner, or a side-by-side, or it could be, I don't know, it could be a side-by-side that somebody uses for farming, and it's a livelihood thing. I mean, I don't know. I mean, the stuff is really, the possibilities are endless.
Joe, I got one more question or feature to point out that you discussed that gets glossed over, and it falls within my wheelhouse. So I'm going to be selfish and bring it up. Okay.
Yeah, please do. Yeah.
You had mentioned reviewing a call, right? And it makes me, it's such a hard topic, because I don't want to say, hey, Big Brother's watching and we're going to record every word and we're going to put the thumb on you and hold you down and we're going to make you feel like crap because you suck at your job. It's not that. But like, I'm thinking of a post that I saw on LinkedIn just yesterday. Someone in the automotive industry was looking for a bicycle rack for an SUV. And he calls his dealer, which I think is a Porsche dealer. And he says, hey, I'm looking for a bike rack. Do you have this, then the other thing? And the guy, does the normal, parts guy thing. He's looking stuff up and he goes, yeah, we've got two different options. One's $825 and one's $897, right? And he goes, well, do you have anything cheaper? What about some other options, right? And instead of, taking a name and a phone number and getting some customer information, right? Collecting the data that's so important in sales, instead of taking any information and saying, hey, you know what? I might be able to find you a couple of other options, but it's going to take some research on my part. Could I get a name and number and call you back, right? Instead, the guy goes, oh yeah, I think Tool has some stuff, or Toolie or whatever. And I think you can look them up on this website and blah, blah, blah. And off that sale goes. No contact information, no name.
Are you trying to make me bang my head against my desk right now? Because that makes me cringe every single time. I hear that so much. I'm like, okay, why did you just leave that call without taking a phone number, a name, and an email? That's like 101. Even if you can't help them, like later on, just shoot them a quick, like, man, there are even templates for that. Hey, I'm really sorry, I wasn't able to find the part you wanted, but is it okay to keep you on our list? And if something does come up in the future and we're going to offer it Sunday, come on, anything, but take that information.
Something. And the idea that you can record calls and you can use them, again, not to beat on people, right? Yeah. One of my biggest things that I say during my presentation is very few people in the power sports space, and this goes from the OEM all the way down to the dealer, right, have had formal communication or leadership training. So when somebody makes one of those mistakes, instead of being like, you're an idiot, just go, hey, I noticed you didn't get customer name and information. It's really important we collect the data, collect as much data as possible because it helps us grow our business. We need to be able to follow up with people on lost sales. And if you just coach people, man, they get, and you're giving people the tool to do it. You're able to say, hey, let's listen to this call together. Now that you hear yourself on this call, how do you think we could have handled this in a way that would make the customer feel better?
Yeah, it's so key, man. It's really critical. It is huge. Call handling is, and I don't know if I mentioned that, like on Dealerly Pro, we actually have the capacity. It records the calls, and that's why I would have to really work on my stress. So I would have to call Andrew right before listening to calls, because listening to calls is just kind of like, but there's that very quick capacity and capability to do it. And And it's super critical to be able to listen to it precisely to your point, to say, not to beat people over the head. I was one of those that was very fortunate. One of the jobs, the odd jobs that I did when I was paying my way through college was actually call center experience. So to me, what sometimes seems like common sense may not really be common sense to a lot of people. But so it having the capacity to be able to record those calls, and show them, like you mentioned, and say, hey, let's kind of go over this together, I think is a very, very, very powerful thing.
Yeah, it's make or break for me in a lot of respects. And on the service side of the business, at the service counter, it's to me there's almost no replacement for that. So, I even have a course in my training about phone etiquette, because most people in that position have never really had formal training, whether from their parents, through school, or through employment, to understand how to manage relationships, via audio.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
Cool. All right. Any other questions for Joe before I steal the screen?
No, I like to give him praise though, man. There's the masses, right? The most normal people, and then there's like these smart people where, like, say they go pick up this book, like they could repeat it, they remember the information in the book. But then there's like this higher level genius, and that higher level genius is able to like really break it down in brand new concepts, like take really ridiculous hard things like the smart people have that they understand, but they don't fully understand it. And that genius mind can break it down where the masses, like looking at this cell phone, I feel like this is what we just went through. Like this mental image I see is like everybody sees a cell phone, but Joe doesn't see a cell phone. Joe sees all the inner working parts. And it was like this spiral, like he just showed you all of that, and then it put back the phone, and here's the phone. It's like, man, high praise, man. I mean, just to have that kind of mind to break things down in simplified form.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. That's very kind.
Rock and roll.
Thank you.